This is not a story about an ordinary train. Oh no, ordinary trains are dreadfully boring. They chuff and they puff and they get you from one dull place to another. They are full of commuters with glum faces reading newspapers filled with dreary news. But the Kronos Express was something else entirely. It was a train of pure magic and glorious nonsense. Its engine was not forged from steel, but spun from solidified moonlight and polished starlight. The carriages were painted a brilliant, shimmering purple. The kind of purple you only see in the most magnificent sunsets. And its whistle didn't shriek. It sang a cheerful, bubbly tune that made you want to dance a jig. Now you might be wondering, what was so very special about this particular train? Was it the cushy velvet seats that felt like sitting on a soft, plump cloud? Was it the endless supply of fizzy pop and scrum-diddly-umptious chocolate bars that appeared whenever you felt a tiny bit peckish? Those things were certainly splendid, absolutely top-notch. But the real magic, the absolutely gobsmacking secret of the Kronos Express, was something far more fantastic. This train, my dear reader, could stop time. Yes, you read that right. With a special lever and a puff of sparkly steam, it could freeze the entire world in a single breathtaking moment. The Kronos Express didn't run on a normal schedule. It appeared only for those who truly needed a little bit of wonder in their lives. Perhaps a little girl who wished she had more time to play before bedtime, or an old man who wanted to relive a happy memory just a moment longer. The conductor, a jolly fellow with a magnificent mustache that curled up at the ends like a pair of friendly caterpillars, would tip his hat and welcome you aboard. The tickets weren't made of paper, but of pressed autumn leaves that rustled with secrets, and they didn't cost a single penny. The only price of admission was a hopeful heart and a mind ready for the impossible. So, imagine stepping aboard. The doors would slide shut with a gentle whoosh, not a clang. Inside, everything glowed with a warm, friendly light. The windows were enormous, showing you the world you were about to leave behind, at least for a little while. Children would press their noses against the cool glass, their eyes wide with anticipation. They knew they weren't just going to a new place. They were going to a new when. A secret slice of time that belonged only to them and the marvelous, magical, time-stopping Kronos Express. The journey was about to begin, and it promised to be utterly, wonderfully bonkers. How did it work, you ask? Well, it was a magnificent performance. The jolly conductor would march to the front of the engine car where a grand, gleaming golden lever stood. It was called the Grand Pause lever. He would grab it with both hands, wink at the passengers, and then pull it back with a mighty heave. Ho! A shiver would run through the train. Not a scary shiver, but a delightful, fizzy one, like a gulp of sherbet lemon. A soft, golden light would pour out from the engine, washing over the carriages and then spilling out of the windows, spreading across the land like honey. And then, stillness. For the people on the train, the world outside the windows became a perfect painting. Everything simply stopped. A bird, which had been flapping its wings midair, would hang there as if suspended by an invisible string. A raindrop just about to splash into a puddle would freeze, a tiny glittering jewel. People walking on the street below would be frozen in the most peculiar positions. A man mid-sneeze, a woman laughing with her mouth wide open, a boy about to kick a football. The world became a silent, motionless museum of a single second. And the passengers of the Kronos Express were the only ones who could wander through its halls. From the outside, nobody saw a thing. For them, no time passed at all. The train would vanish from the tracks in the blink of an eye and reappear in the exact same spot in the very next blink. The man would finish his sneeze, the woman's laugh would finally ring out, and the boy's foot would connect with the ball, sending it soaring. They would never know that a magnificent purple train full of happy passengers had just spent hours, or even days, exploring the quiet moment they had just lived through without even noticing. The secret of the great stillness was kept perfectly safe, known only to those lucky enough to ride the train. Inside the train, the feeling was one of pure peace and utter freedom. The constant ticking of the clock, the rush, rush, rush of the world, all of it just melted away. There were no deadlines to meet, no appointments to keep. There was only now. A long, stretchy, wonderful now that you could do anything with. The air itself seemed to hum with a gentle, quiet energy. It was the sound of time taking a deep, restful breath. Passengers would look at each other with wide, smiling eyes, understanding that they were part of something truly special, a secret club that had found the world's pause button. What did one do when the entire world was holding its breath? Why, you had adventures, of course. The most splendid and peculiar adventures imaginable. The doors of the Kronos Express would swing open, and the passengers could step out into the silent world. You could, for instance, walk right up to a grumpy-looking cat, frozen mid-hiss, and gently stroke its fur without any fear of being scratched. You could rearrange the apples on a fruit stand into a smiley face, knowing they would tumble into a surprising new pattern the moment time restarted. It was a world of harmless, delightful mischief. The children especially knew exactly what to do. They would have races with the frozen raindrops, seeing who could run from one end of a street to the other before the drops would have normally hit the ground. They would play hide-and-seek among the motionless cars and unmoving pedestrians, finding the most wonderfully silly hiding spots. Imagine hiding behind a postman who was frozen with his hand outstretched to put a letter in a box. You could give a flower to a statue, or borrow a hat from a gentleman who was stopped mid-stride and wear it for a little while, placing it back perfectly before the world woke up again. But the adventures were not just for fun and games. They could also be quiet and beautiful. An artist could spend hours studying the intricate pattern of a frozen snowflake resting on a branch. A musician could walk through a silent concert hall and imagine the glorious sounds the motionless orchestra would soon make. An elderly woman could walk to the park and sit on a bench next to a frozen memory of her younger self laughing on a swing, a moment she had long forgotten. The train gave you the gift of time to simply look, to see all the tiny, beautiful details of the world that are usually missed in the everyday hurry. For every passenger, the adventure was different, tailored to the whispers of their own heart. One boy, who was always too shy to talk to the girl he liked at school, found her frozen mid-laugh in the park. He tiptoed over and placed a small, perfect daisy in her motionless hand. When time resumed, she would look down and find the flower, a tiny mystery, a moment of magic she could never explain. The Kronos Express didn't just stop time. It created little pockets of wonder, secret stories sprinkled into the fabric of the everyday world for people to discover later. The Kronos Express was more than just a magical train. It was a wonderful teacher. Its most important lesson was hidden in the silence. In our normal, noisy lives, we are always rushing to school, rushing to work, rushing to the next thing and the thing after that. We think we never have enough time. We gobble up our moments like they are hot potatoes, never truly tasting them. The train showed its passengers that time wasn't something to be fought against or raced through. It was something to be savored, like a delicious piece of chocolate that you let melt slowly on your tongue. By stopping the world, the train gave everyone a chance to breathe. In the great stillness, you could finally hear your own thoughts without all the chatter of the world interrupting. You could notice the worried frown on a stranger's frozen face and feel a sense of kindness. You could see the joyful smile on a child's face and remember what it feels like to be truly happy. The train taught empathy. It allowed you to step into another person's moment and see the world, just for a second, exactly as they were seeing it. It made you understand that every single person has a story happening all the time. The most peculiar thing would happen when the journey was over. When the conductor pushed the grand pause lever forward and the world flickered back to life, the passengers didn't feel sad. Instead, they felt refreshed and full of a new kind of energy. They had learned that even in a normal, ticking minute, there are 60 whole seconds of wonder to be found, if you only know how to look. They learned to appreciate the little things, the way the sun shines on a puddle, the sound of a friend's laughter, the taste of a fresh strawberry. The magic wasn't just in stopping time. It was in learning how to appreciate the time you had. And so, the Kronos Express would chuff away, disappearing around a bend with a final cheerful toot of its musical whistle. Its passengers would step back into their lives, but they were changed. They carried the secret of the stillness in their hearts. They moved a little slower, smiled a little more, and looked at the world with brighter, more curious eyes. The greatest gift of the time-stopping train was not the adventure of a frozen world, but the simple, beautiful lesson that the most magical moments are often the ones happening right now, if we just take a moment to pause and notice.